Package just arrived. Express Courier International. There's a note. Oh, thank you very much. Oh, wow. It looks like some machine heads, a couple of bridges and 2 truss. There's enough parts here to build 2 bass guitars. I'm going to build 2 bass guitars. Okay, so let's talk about what you've just seen and what is actually happening here. I'm sure many of you would be expecting me to come back with a video about making pickups, and yes, I have made lots of pickups. I have made all different kinds and types and all different magnet types, and I've made a lot of mistakes. I've learned a lot. I'm going to share that with you when it's time. Obviously, as part of these builds, I will be making my own pickups. That's coming. This is going to be the top. I'm going to take 2 slices, so cut that in half, and then I've got 2 pieces that I can book match for the tops on these. It is going to look rather good. This is some very nice figure. There's like sapwood sort of coming in there, but I'm thinking as that sort of goes that way up the sides, it's just going to look lovely. Kauri backs. I had this giant slab of kauri for some time. It was very thick and very rough on one side, so I took it to a local furniture maker, Gavin Cox Furniture. They were more than happy to just run it through their planer. There was a giant nail sticking in it, so you probably saw a chunk taken out of the side where I had to cut that away. And also the way I orientated them on the big board is because there was a join across there, and I wanted that big ugly thing on the bottom of the base. We've got another one there, rather than having that across the top, although we did get nail holes, but you know, that's nothing compared with how awful that would have looked if I'd had that across the top of the body. So that's where we're at. I've drawn up a 14-day plan technically this is day 2. I don't know if I'm doing daily videos, probably not, if I'm honest. It's a lot of work, and I've got a lot of work ahead of me, but I'm on holiday, I've got wood, I've got projects on the go, things are happening, it's going to be good, all the hardware's arrived, I am ready to book match this and glue it on there. This is going to be spectacular, because I love the way this piece of wood looks. Right, that's 2 sets of walnut, beautifully book matched. Let's see what we got. Oh yeah, it's a little bit of a strange one. The original plank that I cut this from, of course, it's got a knot hole right in there. And it's basically coming off of that side there. So of course we're getting all of this, I think they call it cathedral grain. Yeah, it's... I don't know how I feel about that, because it's sort of... Yeah, I don't know, let's see how this one looks. Ooh, see, that looks a lot nicer. I much prefer that, I think. Yeah, there's just a bit more sort of the whole thing's just a little more spread out. It's not like concentric circles just going all the way up. Also, I quite like the contrast of the lighter wood on the outside sort of pulling in. It kind of follows the shape of the base. Actually, how does it look? Yeah, see, we're pulling in quite a lot of the lighter wood on either side. That whole contrasting bit there. Nearly, but not quite. Yeah, same on that side. See, that's actually going to look very, very nice. I like the way that one's going to look. How's this one going to go? Yeah, so that's going to be dark wood all the way up, except for a little bit on that side. Yes, there's a trick that I might try. Because I've got a bit of extra space here, what I can do is actually cut a V out of the centre here and pull the whole thing in, so that I can get some of the light wood on the edges of this. And also it might serve to just yeah, I don't really like the way that the symmetry of it looks a little bit forced. It doesn't look as attractive as it could. I think I will. Yes, I'll measure up, see how much room I've got spare, and then I'll just cut a little V out of the centre, probably clamp them together, and then plane the new edges off. Yeah. Okay, so let's see what we got. Oh yeah? Yeah, that looks a lot better. We don't have a whole lot of... Yeah, we don't have a whole lot of that white stuff coming through, but there'll be a little bit there. I can't take any more off this side, because of course you're taking something off the entire length of it so that it's a perfectly flat line, and that's right flush. In fact, by the time I cut a binding channel, that's just going to be right at the limit of what I can actually get away with. It's alright, I kind of like that. It sort of just pulls these two knots, and the whole thing sort of pulls in a bit tighter as well. I suspect there'll be a bridge about there, there'll probably be a pickup there, so all of this in the centre will get to shine through before the neck starts. I believe, because I did my preparation properly, these sides are, well, Okay, they're not perfect, but they're as flat as they're going to get. These are perfectly flat because, of course, my friend planed them down for me. And basically we are ready to glue tops onto bodies. And then I can set them up overnight. I will mark out on the wood exactly where I'm going, and then I'll cut this roughly to shape just so that I can get clamps around it. And I think it'll all come out looking rather good. Okay, so next, get used to that pun, I'm going to be saying it a lot. I am using Quilla, specifically this giant chunk of it here. Very, very solid, very, very hard, very stiff, very stable. This piece happens to be perfectly quarter sawn. I don't know if you can see the grain there. It's absolutely magnificent piece of timber, this. I have another piece of it exactly the same length and even a bit wider because I have already taken the liberty of cutting a chunk off and splitting it in two. I believe that went about there. So, yes, I have two neck blanks. There are factory edges, there are machined edges on yes, two sides. So that side especially is the side that will be on the table saw when we cut the scarf joints, and that is the side that we'll be gluing a fingerboard to, because this is the side that I split. They were cut like that. So there's saw marks and other, like if that's the back of the neck, we're going to carve that out. Now I have already marked out where the headstock comes to and where the scarf joint should begin. We are doing 850mm scale length, which is Rickenbacker. So that's what I'm used to. It's a nice, comfortable way. It's about that much shorter than a fender. Not by much, just enough to make it just that little bit extra more comfortable. Working out how I'm going to cut these is going to be interesting because, as I said, I need these flat edges, which I have checked. They are perfectly square because I've come undone like that before. So I'm going to have that edge sitting on the table of the bandsaw, and I need to work out how to get that angle. I need to basically shift my marking from this side to this side, then angle back 9 degrees from that point there, and that's going to give me the angle that I want in the place that I want it, and the orientation that I can cut it nice and square and even on the bandsaw. Alrighty, these are looking good. Still a lot of work to do. I need to trim this all down, make it all nice and good. There's quite a few saw marks around there, so I'll need to trim all that off. What I'm going to do today with the necks is chuck the truss rods in and then chuck the fingerboards on. This is the fingerboard board that I'm going to make fingerboards from. This board, you know what I mean. It's Quilla, lovely figured piece. I'll be splitting it in half, and that'll make a couple of fingerboards. I've got to trim these faces off because they're a little bit uneven, especially where the join is. And that will, of course, as I was saying, shift the nut position that way a bit. And I've got plenty of room. I believe I have. Yeah, I've got about 15 mil of space there to play with. So that's plenty good. Plenty good. Ready to go. Yay. Okay, so truss rods are in, fretboard's cut. Here is how it's going to look. Looks a bit odd, doesn't it? I don't want that on my base. That little defect there. That's going to have to get chopped out, which means I'm going to have to set it sort of about there. But that's alright. When I'm marking out the fret positions and actually cutting the slots, I always want a nice straight square edge, and when I cut that edge square, that's going to slice that defect right off. So both boards are going to have to get glued on sideways. It's going to look a little bit odd, but there is method in the madness, and it'll make for a better instrument in the long run. So yes, I'll just trim this roughly to size. Obviously, normally, as if I do this more than once a year, normally I would have this end perfectly square, that end perfectly square, everything lined up absolutely perfectly square and even all the time, always. But yeah, I'm going to wind up with that, and I don't want it. So yes, I'm going to have to do something a bit like that, and then once it's actually on there, mark everything out square, and then I'll have to make an actual square cut for where the nut's going to sit. But for now, I'm literally just going to measure and take an approximate cut with a bit extra answers, glue it in place, and then I'll square it up after the fact. So yeah. Alright, now I would like to make some progress on these bodies before I go too much further. There is quite a bit to do to them. The first thing I really need to do is actually sand these flat, because they are pretty flat for the most part. Just when the bandsaw was getting into this harder grain here, it started to drift a little bit. That's the worst one. The other one's not quite so bad. It's just a little lip there, but I need to sand that off so that the surface can be flat enough to sit on the bandsaw so that I can trim the excess off. I'm doing binding, so these will be bound and carved. I don't have a whole lot of room to do a really deep rounding carve to them, but I'll do what I can for comfort and style. But it all begins with sandpaper. Right, well that seems like a pretty good place to end this episode. There will be plenty more videos coming, I'm sure. Quite exactly when, I'm not going to stick to any sort of schedule because I'm on holiday and I'm just sort of free-forming it at the moment. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, thank you very much for subscribing. Make sure you come back to watch the rest of it if you're interested in seeing how they come out, and I will see you when I've got something else to show you. Cheers.